Hello, my friends. I am here to bring you part 2 to my reading, or the story of my reading, The 1900 or The Last President. And last week I mentioned that I was going to read this book. Mind you, as soon as I did that video, I did go and read that book, but I had to reread it because it is just really intense. The language is really intense, and I think if I approached that story as just a story, it might have been easier, but I was constantly, my brain was going back and forth to the story, trying to compare it to our current times, trying to compare it to the experience of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. And so my brain was like, I don't know, doing these crazy zigzags. So if I just read it as a story, I think I might have been a bit easier to digest things, but I was constantly running like to and fro, different ideas. Could this be like a time travel thing? Could this be a prophetic thing? Could this be like symbolic of the times right now? So it was a bit crazy, but let me know what you think. I will read some snippets from this book. And mind you, it was very, if this was prophetic in any way or time travel, I can understand why people are convinced that could be so, because there's a lot of, I guess, confirmation in that direction, especially for people like me who believe who hold certain sets of beliefs about, Trump and the direction of the country and where we want it to go and how it's going. It brings up like the New York, for example, chapter 1. That was a terrible night for the great city of New York. The night of Tuesday, November 3rd, 1896. It starts off talking about like New York and how, let me just read a little bit what happened in New York. So there's this election for Bryan, President of the United States. And here's a quote. "In less than half an hour, mounted policemen dashed through the streets, calling out, 'Keep within your houses, close your doors and barricade them. The entire East Side is in a state of uproar. Mobs of vast size are organizing under the lead of anarchists and socialists and threaten to plunder and despoil the houses of the rich who have wronged and oppressed them for so many years. Keep within doors, extinguish all lights.'" I mean, we had that Summer of Love, and that's kind of like, makes me think of that. Let's see. Slowly, but with astonishing nerve and steadiness, the mobs pushed the police northward. And although the force stood the onslaught of magnificent courage, yet beaten back, the dark masses of infuriated beings surged up again with renewed fury and strength. More and more and more, fire and flame. Fifth Avenue Hotel, like Madison Square. These are the things that we're hearing like nowadays, right? Let's see. Talking about destruction by the mob. Describing more of the New York City. And then the aged governor, in response to the mayor's, "Thank God we've saved the city," made answer, "Aye, but the Republic." And then it brings us to Chicago. So in Chicago, So basically, it did not need a single federal soldier. So now it's opposite. New York is crazy angry that this president is elected, I guess. And mind you, I'm not an expert on this book, so if I misunderstand something, it is what it is. I might have to read this like 10 times to really understand. Chicago is mad, but it is the madness of joy, and describes Chicago, and which is opposite of New York City. Talks about the common people, okay? Listen to this. "And yet at this moment, when the night air quivered with the mad vociferations of the common people, that the Lord had been good to them, that the wicked money changers had been driven from the temple, that the stony-hearted usurers were beaten at last, that people's William was at the helm now, that peace and plenty would be in a few moons but come back to a poor man's cottage, that silver was king, aye, king at last. The world still went wondering why red-eyed anarchy, as she stood in Haymarket Square, with thin arms aloft, with wild mien and wilder gesticulations, drew no bomb of dynamite from her bosom to hurl at the hated minions of the law who were silent spectators of this delirium of popular joy. Why was it thus? Look, and you shall know why white-robed peace kept step with this turbulent band and turned its thought from red-handed pillage. I mean, it's just kind of opposite. Here you have people in New York going crazy, and there's people in Chicago who are happy. And there's lots of people out there, but they're not causing destruction. I could read so many quotes from this book. It's amazing. What should I read? Let's see. I mean, the text about the Supreme Court talks about so many crazy things. I mean, now, like, you're like, oh my gosh, I can see. Are they talking about this time that's happening? Oh, a feeling that the old order had passed away and that the Republic had entered into the womb of time and been born again. Year of Jubilee. Let's see. I mean, the American people are not in favor of life tenure in the civil service, that a permanent office-holding class is not in harmony with our institutions, that a fixed term in appointed offices would open the public service to a larger number of citizens without impairing its efficiency. The inaugural address. The South and Far West were fairly beside themselves with joy, for there had been, from their standpoint, ugly rumors abroad for several days. It had been even hinted that Bryan had surrendered to the money changers and that the selection of his constitutional advisors would prove him recreant to the glorious cause of popular government, and that the reign of the common people would remain but a dream of the struggling masses. But these apprehensions were short-lived. And then the text about the president having in his cabinet, Secretary of Agriculture, a guy with the last name of Pence. I mean, wow. So, okay, the great friend of the common people, this new president. Goodness, I mean, I could read so much, but okay, let's read this. We are the people, wrote the president in lines of dignity and calmness. We are the people, and what we do under the holy sanction of law. And there is no one so powerful or so bold as to dare to say, we do not do well in lifting up the nation's shoulders the grievous and unlawful burdens which preceding Congresses have placed upon them. I mean, isn't that what we want right now? Oh, man. There's just so much. It's amazing. It talks about the Creator. I mean, you have to read this. You have to read this. And there's some beautiful quotes, if you believe this is prophetic, that will like inspire you, that perhaps good things are coming. But there's also the hardships. I mean, it does talk about the danger of civil war in the country. My goodness, and talks about his beloved, she was his supporter. I mean, if you think about it, President Trump, and there's a lot that I guess makes sense if you're pro-Trump. This is amazing. I think this book, it kind of showcased the dichotomy or the split culture of the people in this story, and now as well between Republicans, Democrats, and this president being in office, and how hopeful people are, that common people are really hopeful and excited, but also warns us about the civil war and unrest. I would say if you are curious at all, go for it. It's not a very big book, but you may have to read it a few times. But it does make you wonder, like, I'm going back and forth. Is this just a story? Is this time travel? Is this a prophetic insight? Could be. But I'm trying to also understand what is it trying to teach us, or do we need more of time to pass so that we could say, oh, that is what they were talking about. So I don't know. But it definitely is an interesting book. Like, wow. I'm not very eloquent right now because this book is intense, as in the people were so smart, the language they used, the way they spoke about things and concepts. Right now our brain is just so simple. We cannot process ideas, these intense ideas, I think, as well as maybe the people who are used to reading this kind of books. Right now we're like fast food readers, right? And this book is not like, this is like sit down, chew on it, chew on it, chew on it, chew on it kind of meal. But I mean, I could read the whole book and you'd be like, wow, this is talking about this is talking about this time, this is talking about this particular experience right now we're experiencing. But anyways, so the curious thing is, look, if you can read it, I mean, it's reverse. Baron Trump. I mean, isn't it crazy? Baron Trump. And this guy wrote these stories about Baron Trump like over 100 years ago. So I'm gonna go and read the first book, Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog, Bulger. And I'll get back to you and see if I learned anything. Or maybe I needed to read this book first so I could understand 1900 or the last president. So maybe that will unlock some keys, I don't know. But I'll get back to you and I'll let you know. Let me know what you think. And hopefully you're excited to learn a bit more about these stories. All the best to you all. Bye-bye. Go out and vote. Thank you.